My name is Hannah Moak. I grew up in New York City, and I have two moms. They're both named Cheryl. And I also, one of my moms, her father was gay, and we lost him to AIDS in 1986. My other mom's sister is also queer, and so we have a big queer family. And I've been coming to collage programming. I came when I was a young kid, and then I got involved when we had chapters. I was involved in the New York City chapter. And then in 2020, Collage put out a call for board members, and I decided I wanted to get back involved. And so I became a board member, and now I am the board co-chair of Collage. So I grew up talking about my family to pretty much anyone who would listen. I told everyone and anyone that I had two moms. If they asked, if they didn't ask. I know that in preschool once, a kid asked her dad why she couldn't have two mommies like Hannah. I sold the sizzle that well, I guess. And I think growing up in New York City, it allowed me to be more open than some folks my age. You know, I was born in 1992, pretty early in the queer parenting wave that started to happen in the 90s. And so there weren't a lot of families like ours, but people were pretty open and accepting. I think there were situations where I realized that our family was different and that people didn't necessarily like our family even. I once was at Disney World and I was bored in a line, and I said to the parents in front of us, I have two mommies. And they kind of pulled their kid away and left. And I don't know that it struck me in that moment, but that memory has kind of stuck out to me as like the first time I experienced someone being uncomfortable or even homophobic about my family. I think also my parents faced homophobia as they were trying to have a kid, that impacted the way that my experience of family happened, right? So like one of my mom's mom was definitely uncomfortable with the situation. She was perfectly loving and wonderful to me, but she definitely did not like my other mom. And so, and I think all of that also comes from homophobia, right? That came from the fact that it was 1992 and my grandmother was in her 70s probably at that point. And so I think that's one of the things. My parents also got asked a lot how I came to be, which is not a question straight families are asked, right? That would be incredibly inappropriate, and it's inappropriate for queer families also. And I had a lot of really positive experiences with my classmates who thought it was just really cool. I had some bullying experiences with kids who thought it was weird, right? But nothing ever too intense. But I do think as I was growing up with when marriage equality was coming up the path, right? It was happening. And so that became the moment where I realized like, oh, this is a fight. Like our family has to fight for what we want and what we need. I hadn't even thought about some of the other things that play into it that, of course, now I know, parentage and other things like that. But marriage equality became kind of my fight very early. And it was just so clear. I mean, in the early days, for example, of Facebook, when I was still in high school, I was fighting with grown adults about what kind of family I should have, what the fact that they would always say, no, you only have one mom. You could only have one mom. And it was like, no, I'm telling you I have two. I know I have two. You're not going to convince me I don't, right? And so I think it's just so silly. But Facebook really became, for me, the place where I was like, oh, I have to fight people about this problem and about my family. And so, I think marriage equality was a big point for me where I was like, oh, my family is a political issue. And I think I hadn't realized until then. And then I remember how exciting marriage equality passing was, both in New York and then federally. My moms did not take advantage, but my aunts did. And going to their wedding and some of our other friends' weddings was just so very exciting. And so that for me, having that victory was a reason to keep fighting for all the other things that our families need. And now it's a reason to keep fighting to keep those rights we've already got, right? We're not done. That fight's not over. Marriage equality can still be at risk. And so I think I just learned from a very early age that we had to fight for our families. And collage helped me see that there were a lot of us fighting for our families, right? And that it wasn't just just that queer people wanted to get married. It was that families needed protection, and the same protection that straight families had. And so I was really lucky to have these communities here, both at Collage and other families that my moms had met along the way of trying to have a kid. Yeah, I think those are all the things. Is there anything else you want me to talk more about?
Yeah, so this will be segmented up.
Sure, yeah. I figured. I just thought I'd talk until I ran out of steam. Okay, cool.
Let's see. I had just some questions like about how it's like how there's a gold sweet spot and now it's like getting more and more restricted.
Yeah.
Yes, and everything.
Yeah.
Because I was not in a big short.
Sure.
And then got February and that was right when the IVF thing happened.
Yeah.
And like literally texting me that morning, he was like, I can't make it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Talk about just all the kind of
the political climate, how it's getting leveraged.
Yeah, against us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Sure. Let's see how I phrase that. I think right after marriage equality was passed, there was this sense that we had done it, right? And it became clear pretty quickly that there were other fights to be had, right? And so parentage is one of those, second parent adoption, those kinds of issues that really impact kids with LGBTQ parents. I mean, my mom's did it very unofficially. My mama is not on my birth certificate and had really no legal rights to me. And my parents luckily have remained incredibly close my whole life. They actually broke up when I was little, but they have stayed best of friends, and we come to family week together still now. And so, but there are lots of situations where protections are needed, right? If we had ever traveled to another state and something happened to my biological mom and mama needed to make decisions for me, she couldn't have. And so we got very lucky, but families need protection. And now they're even coming, the other side, the folks are even coming after the way that we form families. And that's really scary because what I want more of is queer families in this world, not fewer. And if IVF and other forms of family formation are under attack, if queer adoption comes under attack, and in many places it's still a struggle, I think that's a really scary place to be. We're seeing such a growth in queer families, and that makes us all safer and have bigger communities and better communities. And if that starts to change, that could be a really scary place to be. We could go back to the beginnings of Collage and this fight, and where there were 5 people in a room trying to figure out what queer family was and meant. And it can mean so many things, but having so many examples that we have now is so important. And so I think that fight has to be fought so hard by so many. And I think that something I thought about a lot as a kid was about whether Queerspawn collagers should be politicized so much, if they have to be. It felt very important to me to be politically involved, but I think a lot of our peers feel tired, right? They're tired of fighting for their families, and they didn't ask to fight for their families. They just were born into the families they're in. And so I think we all deserve safety, and we all deserve to be safe in our families. And so I'd love to see a generation of Queerspawn who don't have to fight all the time for their families, but we're not quite there yet. So that's just a really critical issue, I think. Yeah.